Hello. In this video, what we're going to be focusing on is a new craft and structure skill. This time, we're going to be focusing on words in context. Now, words in context might seem easy at first because intuitively the answers are shorter. You might not always need to spend that much time focusing on it. But what this really focuses on, it involves you having a strong vocabulary. So, if your vocabulary isn't strong, you might find it difficult to answer these kinds of questions. Because sometimes these words might be something you never see before. However, there are tips that you can use to make things easier on yourself. First important tip you want to know is using context clues. Now, depending on the context of the question, some of the answer choices might not make sense. For example, if a subject, if the topic of the text is mentioned clearly, and you see one of the answers doesn't really fit that context, you can probably rule it out. Which brings us to the second point of eliminating answers that you think are clearly wrong. For example, if you know what some words mean and you know that they don't really fit the context of the question at all, then you could eliminate those answers using the cross out tool on Blue Book. Thirdly, you want to consider the function of the words, whether they're the ones that you need to fit in or the ones in the answer choices. If you can understand function, which word function is best, then that's going to be really good for you. But also, you want to figure out what kind of word is it. Is it going to be a noun? Is it going to be an adjective? If you're able to understand those things, then it helps you with your answer choice as well. The fourth tip I have is to paraphrase the sentence. If you can rewrite it in your own words and understand it deeply, then you're more likely to select an answer choice that makes the most sense. And number five, the SAT sometimes gives you like tricky questions, meaning that they give you some words that look very similar, but they might be having one small difference. Pay attention to those small details because those details could be in the context, for instance. Which brings me back to the first point. If something doesn't fit the context of the question and is very similar to another word that does fit the context, you want to go for the one that is most tailored to the question. So let's look at an example here. Practice problem. Artist Marilyn Dingland's intricate coil baskets are blank, sweetgrass and palmetto palm. Following a Gola technique that originated in West Africa, Dingles skillfully winds a thin palm frond around a bunch of sweetgrass with the help of a sewing bone to create the basket's signature look that no factory can reproduce. Which choice completes a text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Indicated by, handmade from, represented by, or collected with. Now, based on the fact that it says no factory can reproduce, B is the only one that really makes sense here. Coiled baskets are indicated by, it's not really showing us anything. That doesn't fit the context at all. C doesn't make sense, it's not representing anything. And you're not collecting the baskets using the materials, you're making them from hand, which is what B is telling us. So this is how we would arrive at B as our answer. Now this problem I want you to try doing on your own. Pause the video here and figure it out. Okay, the correct answer is D. Now why this is that we can see it radically altered the semiconductor industry. So, and it also enabled it to take advantage of mass production methods for the first time. So overwhelm doesn't really make sense. It's not causing any negative consequence. It's helping it, in fact. Same thing for C and B. It doesn't bypass industry by overtaking it. It changed the industry for good. Practice problem number three. Pause and figure this out. The correct answer is D. Now, while a lonely might be, it might be similar to singular in certain context. A lonely change beginning to be visible doesn't really fit the context of the question. Same thing with a disagreeable change. It's a rose. It's nothing. It's not an opinion or something that you can disagree on. An acceptable change doesn't fit the context either, because what what would need to be acceptable about a change being in the rose? D is the correct answer here, because this is what tells us that crushed and dried petals stood and assumed the deepening tinge of crimson, as if the flower was arriving from a death-like slumber. This is extraordinary. This is the extraordinary change that was immediately visible. None of the other answers really reflect that. Number four, please pause and figure this one out. The correct answer is A. Now, what we want to really draw your attention to is this last question, last section over here. Individuals tend to be more decisive if information flow between the regions is intensified. So, intensifying over here is, we need to find an antonym to that, because it's telling us they make choices more slowly when information is blank. So, what is the opposite of intensifying here? That's what A is, reducing it. You're making it less potent. You're not making it as strong anymore. Number five, please pause and figure this one out. The correct answer is C. Now, contracting and developing, they're a bit different under normal circumstances. But the reason that this works is because he's taking a habit. When he traveled in his younger years and was held into part of the country, he contracted a too rambling habit of mind, meaning that he took it. It's kind of like an illness that you contract by having it affect you. And here, he's developing the habit that affects him. So that's why C is the best answer in this case. And practice problem number six. Please pause and figure this one out. If you got the if you selected answer D, you are correct. It is highly variable, because here we can see after the colon, the sounds produced by the instrument can differ based on the distance between the ridges, the types of strokes, and the thickness of the gourd. This one is can differ, which is what reflects C. No, reflects D is the correct answer, because this one is saying change. None of the other options really reflect that except for D, which is very similar to that. I hope this helped you with words and context questions. Thank you all for watching.